self-control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I hope you're having a great night. Happy Sunday night. Tomorrow, of course, is a holiday that I've been graciously reminded of, so I don't need to give you the Monday pep talk, which is nice. But I hope you have a great extended weekend if you get to partake in it. If you got to work tomorrow, I'm sorry, that just sucks. But welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Night Terrors, our shorter version of the Paranormal Portal, where we discuss primarily ghost stories. Generally, we do ghostly encounters on these shows, and just a great get-together, a great time to get together. I do need to make a quick announcement, though. This is going to be coming up not this week, but next week, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, Jesus. Better not do that. I'm going to pinch my headphone cord off. I shut it in the drawer. Next week, let's see. Let me pull up my calendar here. As it stands now, I'm going to take the week of the 23rd through the 29th off. I won't be doing any shows, not this week, but next week. Just so you guys know, it's been over a year and I haven't had a break. So I'm going to take a few days. I got a lot of things to work on for the shows that I'm just not getting the time to do because of, constant shows and shows and shows. I need more time. So I'm going to be taking not this week, but next week. There'll be no live shows. We'll still be releasing the podcast, just so you know, but I'm going to give myself 7 days to hopefully catch up on some things and decompress for a while too. I think I need it. Not that doing the shows is hard or even tough, but it's just another thing that I have to add to every daily list, and I can't get the things done that I want to in order for us to continue to raise the bar and to implement things that we've been trying to implement, but I just haven't had the time to work on, haven't had the ability to work on those things. And so I've got to dedicate some time just to those things. But again, we will be releasing podcasts on the podcasting platforms, which is Pandora, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes. Just continue to look for those Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And but that includes the 2-hour shows. So next week, not this week, next week, there will be no shows of any kind, live shows, but there's a hell of a bunch of archives. There are literally over, 600 shows now, or close to 600 shows on our YouTube archives. So I'm sure that most of you probably haven't seen everything that's here anyway. So if you miss us, go check those out. Otherwise, just hang tight. We will be back the following week, of course, but I just need some time. There's no time. I just don't have the time. So I'm going to take the time, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you guys understand. No, I don't want anybody to do the show for me. It's just going to be a time off. We're just going to decompress for a while and get some things lined up for the future of the show. We've got some big engagement coming up in Medellin Falls that we have to be ready for. That's over in Washington for a live on-site show and recordings over there. And I got a lot of things to do to test for that. I'm trying to roll out, a Patreon. I'm trying to work on some more assets for some of the shows. And so there's so much to take care of and just not enough time to do it. So that's the reason why. But I hope you guys understand. It's certainly not because I don't love you, because I love you all. But anyway, that's not this week. You still got this week. So next week, you'll have to miss me. But I hope you all are ready because it's time for bed. And yeah, thank you, Marilyn. I appreciate that. I do. I've been doing 7 days a week shows for going on a year and a half now. So that's like, I don't know how many days that equals, but a lot of them. I do need some time. So I'm glad you understand. Then what else are we going to watch other than Paranormal Portal? I don't know, Aussie. I mean, there's a lot of great shows out there, and there's still going to be the podcast. There's 600 plus episodes on our archive right here on YouTube. That's, I'm sure you can probably find 7 of those that you haven't seen. But I'm going to put you to bed, Bomber. Of course, I'm going to tuck you in. So hope you got the lights turned down.
This is not a valid menu option.
I don't understand. Now I got an echo. Hello. Oh, I love computers. I'm going to turn off my computer for 7 days too. It sounds like it needs a break. There, the echo's gone. But anyway, just wanted to point out that the phone lines will be open throughout the duration of tonight's show. So if you have something you want to talk about tonight, some paranormal activity in your own life that you'd love to share, whether that's cryptid, UFO, ghostly, or otherwise, time slips, time anomalies, Mandela stuff, whatever, give us a call. 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. And the number is right there in case you're looking for it later. I also have to see if I can step away for 7 days. I've never done it before. I'm actually excited and nervous to do it because, this is such a big part of my life. So I guess we'll find out. But anyway, let's get to some shoes. Let's get to some stories. I've got some creepiness to bring your way in the form of ghost stories. The first one tonight is coming from North Carolina. This is Deb's land. Deb's land. Let's see what's going on in Deb's land. Hello, Deb, by the way. Good to see you. This is, it has to do with orbs, lights, and mists. It says, around 10 years ago, I resided at Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is approximately 15 to 20 miles from the town of Vander, North Carolina. And this story actually begins around 1978 or around about this time. At the time, I was around 23 years old, and as, of course, most young boys of my age, I were curious of everything. That's exactly what it says. I were curious of everything. Either natural or unnatural. I had heard about the Vander light and was somewhat curious about the matter, so some of my friends had told me about this light and some of the characteristics of this event. They had explained that on the back road, off the main road leading south to Fayetteville, that on a gloomy night with very few or no stars in the sky, a bad accident had occurred quite a few years ago in which a man was traveling in the rear of a train car, the caboose, when he noticed another train approaching behind the train he was flagging for. He began to swing his lantern from side to side to warn the approaching engineer of the situation, and it's been said that the approaching engineer was busy and didn't see the lead train. As to the story that he had been told after the accident, the only part of the flagman's body that was not found was his head. I had to see this for myself, and as soon as the time came where there was a dark and gloomy night, we went to see what this was what was the truth or otherwise. Well, much to my astonishment, we could only park beside the main road and walk down the track, being especially cautious of oncoming trains, of course. About a quarter of the way down to the tracks, we came close to a Y in the tracks where there had been a split to the right in the tracks. About 200 feet from the split in the tracks, I began to notice a faint glow going from side to side, back and forth. I wasn't alone, but trying not to be scared, continued on. My friends did not, much to my dismay. It seemed that the closer I got, the faster the light seemed to move towards me. At around 25 feet or so, the swinging light disappeared. And this was truly spooky, and I have to admit, but when I turned around to return to the road, the same sweeping light was exactly the same distance as it was previously. Now I'm starting to get a little worried in the same manner as to the speed approach as when I had first come up to the light. The light did the same. It didn't take me long to reach the car, as you would guess. I returned to this area once more in about 5 years or so, at which time my exact memory was not completely positive as to the exact site. In Vander, local directions were not completely reliable, so I began to ride around until I found the exact place. This time I was on a dirt bike for a quick getaway if need be. When I approached the Y in the tracks, there was no sign of this light, but when I went to turn around, and after I was actually facing the opposite direction, I could see the same lights. But this time they were on my mirrors. In fact, each and every time I would turn around, they were there. Then I was truly scared, so I backed up the dirt bike and gunned it, and actually jumped both sets of the Y split. I know that this is most definitely not some kind of prank or anything else of the same. In fact, it goes as it goes. I'd be willing to submit a polygraph test as to what I really saw. It only occurs on dark and gloomy nights, and that's the only time for some unforeseen reason. Who knows, maybe the conditions of a dark and gloomy night are the same as when the accident happened. I really don't know, nor do I care. But I know what I saw, and I think that my friends saw the same thing. And that's what scared them. So I'd like to go back, but only to prove that I'm saying that what I'm saying can be witnessed by anyone with the same wish to know the truth. Yeah, there's always many regions in the US that have these stories of these ghost lights, especially around railroad tracks. I don't know. Could it be the spirits? Sure. Could it be some other phenomena? I guess. I don't know. These lights that are seen in forests and seen in all kinds of different places. And it doesn't always follow and I don't know if these legendary stories have any basis in fact at all. These yarns get spun pretty quickly, and it's hard to really track down if there's really some truth to it or not. But in any case, there again, if enough people believe something, does it become true? Maybe it does. Food for thought. The next one's coming from Florida, and this has to do with poltergeists and physical manifestations. So, sounds good. It's around the Halloween time, just after Halloween in 2008. I've submitted several stories about happenings in my home related to my resident ghosts, and the last story was a recent encounter with a perfumed ghost. Well, last Easter, I wrote how the ghost stacked my shoes in the front of the door 2 times, once during the week and the other on Easter evening. Halloween night, I had to work the 11 to 7 a.m. shift at the ER, but I did get to watch some of the live ghost hunter TV shows. And it was a quiet night considering that it was Halloween, no trick-or-treaters, and I actually fell asleep for a few hours before I had to go to work. Earlier that day, I won the Halloween costume contest at my job, and I was tired from being up so early in that day, so I mentioned the TV show because it seems like some of the ghostly happenings occur shortly after watching a show on the paranormal subject. Like the ghosts know I'm open for a visit or something, but they do act up at other times too. Work was slow, not busy for a holiday night, and I was tired and anxious to get home and get to bed. Well, when I opened up the front door, I was startled for a moment because sitting right in the middle of the hallway were my shoes stacked in a straight line again, just like at Easter, and it was done with a different pair of shoes as the ones that used to stack since the ones that used to stack has since been thrown away because the sole had a hole in it. I got the chills, and at the same time, I was excited to see the ghost played a Halloween prank. I'm writing this at work, but when I get home, I'll try to send the picture that I took of the stacked shoes. Another happening, but I don't know if I can blame the ghost. Last week, I was on a trip with my sister, S. S stayed home to watch the dog. I don't know who S is, if that's a significant other or a roommate. And all of a sudden, he heard a loud crash and the sound of glass breaking. What it turned out to be was a large, heavy mirror that was propped against a wall in the laundry room. So how did the mirror just fall forward and hit the sink and crash to the floor? The door was closed, no wind could get in, and the dog was asleep at S's feet. So our question is, how could a big heavy mirror just tip over and shatter? There was no vibration or wind, and any other natural happening that could have pushed it over. And if it slid down to break, why was the glass face down and not right side up? Do you think the ghost was mad that I was away? I guess that's possible. There is a picture here, so let me pull this over and we'll put it on screen so you guys can see the stacked shoes, I guess. All right. Let me line this all up for you guys for your viewing pleasure. Pop open the picture. Oh, that's not bad. Okay, so here is the actual image of the shoes that are stacked. It is bizarre. You can see the Halloween candy still in the bowl by the door here. Yeah, I mean, if that wasn't done by people, then that is pretty bizarre. I'm sure the dog didn't stack the shoes. It looks like, what, 3 shoes? One upside down, one right side up, and then another shoe. Huh. Well, it could very well be. It's not a common kind of common thing, I guess, in hauntings for items to be stacked, but you do hear from it of it from time to time, like chairs being stacked funny. Of course, it's dramatized on the movie The Poltergeist, which, of course, I think most of us probably know and love, but, I guess it's definitely a sign that something is there. If it indeed was done by supernatural means and not by somebody, then that's pretty incredible. All right. What do you guys think? I think it's got a good chance of being legit. I don't see why not. What would you do if you came home and saw shoes stacked up? I'd be like, hey, you want to fold some laundry next? Instead of just lifting a shoe, why don't you grab some laundry and start folding? Make yourself useful. Drag a vacuum around, will you? All right, we got some more. Man, alive. I don't know how I missed so many of them. Sorry, I got to go down and get some more stories for you. Because that's how we roll here on the portal, ladies and gentlemen. 1 hour of chock full of paranormal goodness. All right, the next story is coming from Indiana. This one's pretty quick. Let me grab a drink quick. Hold on. All right, I'm back. And I'm hydrated. That's always a good thing. All right, so Indiana, it says, my great-grandma Eunice was a beautiful woman. When Eunice died, my mama lost a great teacher. And that's what Mama said. And she died at Thanksgiving dinner at my uncle's house, sitting at her place at the table during the blessing of the meal. And that was about 10 years ago. My uncle called my mama up a couple of months ago to tell her that Eunice's locked cabinet, she collected salt and pepper shakers and kept them locked up, was rattling. And she said that it sounded as if someone was trying to get out. He tried to open it, but it was locked, and the key was nowhere to be found. And not wanting to ruin the antique, he wanted Mama to tell him where the key was. Mama's dad wanted a box of Eunice's recipes. She cooked like she was still in the old country, and he would have liked to keep them as a reminder of where we all came from. Well, the box was missing since Eunice died, and he had used the recipes for Thanksgiving meals, so he knew it was around there somewhere. Her cousin wanted a special photo album that had pictures in it of Mama's Uncle Larry, and he'd been missing for a long time, and there were not a lot of pictures of him, but they couldn't find that. Well, Mama told them all to be quiet and listen. Some things would come clear to them shortly, and guess what? It did. One night while my uncle was sleeping, the cabinet squeaked open on its own. That same day, my grandpa, Mama's dad, went into his computer room and found Eunice's recipe box on his computer desk. It should have been 7 hours away at my uncle's house. Mama's cousin came home from taking the kids to school and found the photo album in the utility closet of her house about 5 hours past my uncle's house. I like to think that she was just waiting until everyone was ready to care for these things the way she would have. Now that's really cool. So that's some serious supports, and geographically speaking, they're nowhere near the place where they were. That is bizarre. Very cool though. Very cool story. Wow. All right, the next one's coming from North Carolina again and says, since I had my son Chris, my mom and I have noticed a new entity at her house. My mom was the first to see it and said nothing of it, just to see if I was seeing the same thing as her. If you're sitting in the living room, there's a large entryway to the dining room. Whilst relaxing on the couch one day, I see a shadowy sort of figure peek around the side of the wall and then duck back. I asked Mom if she saw it, and she asked what I saw, and I told her, and she revealed that she had been seeing it but didn't want to say anything just to see if I was seeing the same thing. Well, another day I had Chris over there with me, and I was sitting with him on the couch closest to the entry, and suddenly I see the figure peek, and Chris starts laughing. I don't look at the figure, but just look at my son laughing his little head off at this entity. The entity poked its head out at least 4 or 5 times before it finally stopped. When my mom said something, the ghost was playing peekaboo with my son. Another ghost that had made a brief appearance visited for about 2 months ago or so, and the first time I had just Chris in his crib. I was in front of my dresser, and the bathroom door is off to the left of that. And suddenly I hear the all too familiar sound of a knee popping as my mom's joints pop, and the sound of barefoot stepping on the linoleum. And I looked up to the doorway thinking maybe it was Jeff, and distinctly saw a small woman in a flowing nightgown, and she was white and illuminated, and I only saw her for a split second. I saw this apparition a second time one night. It was in the evening, and the sun had set about an hour or two previously, and Jeff was bowling with his league, and I had Chris playing on the floor, and I was watching a movie, and I don't remember which one, and at the commercial break, I went to the bathroom and rushed back, not wanting to leave my mischievous little guy alone for too long. When I stepped into the room, I saw the same white glowing figure floating up to the ceiling, into the ceiling just above Chris. The next week, I went to Virginia to visit my aunt and grandmother, who lives with my aunt. And one night after everyone, including Chris, had gone to bed, I was going for the midnight munchies to eat while watching a late movie, and I turned around from the fridge, and I saw the figure by the window. She was just standing there, and then she just vanished. Previous to my aunt's house, I thought maybe it was Jeff's great-grandma popping in to see Chris, but after seeing it there in Virginia, I decided that it could be my great-aunt, Ruthie. My mom agreed with this idea, saying that she might have unfinished business, as it's quite likely with that side of the family. Wow, that's really cool. The peekaboo thing is, I don't know. I mean, it's not evil in and of itself, but it's kind of creepy that some shadow figure's playing with your kid. But I guess it's a lot better than throwing stuff or making creepy, awful sounds. So I guess if they're going to be there, being playful is a good way to be. But peekabooing with a little kid, as long as the little kid was laughing, I think maybe it's okay. But, anytime you hear shadow people, automatically it's like, whoa, what kind of people is that? You're not sure. Because, again, we get a lot of different descriptions of these shadow people. And I believe that a shadowy humanoid form does not necessarily imply shadow people. There's just ghosts that choose to be shadowy if they don't want to stick out too much or whatever. But then there's shadow people, and they're not one and the same. But cool story. I think that's kind of beautiful. And this one is from Connecticut, and it has to do with an imaginary friend. We've covered this quite a few times recently on the shows, both the podcast and the YouTube shows. But just to give you some background on me, I've been experiencing the paranormal ever since I was young. I lived in Connecticut for almost my entire life. Now I'm in Florida, but I don't really think it's that haunted a state. But for some reason, I never had any trouble coming into contact with the other side. The earliest memory I have would have to be when I was in preschool. I had a petrifying fear of the dark, and I still do, and would sometimes wet myself because I was too afraid to emerge from my bed to use the bathroom. I knew something was in the darkness of my room just watching me. I could feel it, but not necessarily see it. One particularly scary night, I had to use the bathroom so bad, I was crying because I knew something was waiting for me to get out of bed to hurt me, and suddenly my closet door opened by itself. I had heard rustling in there before, so I didn't really like to go in it unless I absolutely had to. I tried to wake my older brother, but he didn't budge, and I cowered under the blankets with only my eyes peeking out to watch the closet, and something was definitely moving around inside. It was a separate presence from the one I knew was going to hurt me, and I thought it was going to be another being coming to double team me with its buddy, but then what came from the closet wasn't evil at all. First off, the entire being was black, and when I say entire, I mean from top to bottom, it was black. It had the structure of what was a very tall man with arms a bit longer than usual and no hands. Well, actually, I'm not sure what was on the ends of its arms, but they looked like 3 long and thick fingers, but I'm not sure. When he, and I just knew the being to be masculine, emerged, it was kind of like he rolled out into a standing position in slow motion. Needless to say, I freaked out. The being stood to its full height and looked around the room a bit before focusing its gaze on me. Then I smiled. Whatever this being was, it was not going to hurt me. But I knew it came from the same place as the other presence had. This being walked over to my bed and held out its hand. It then asked me if I had to use the bathroom. There was no voice coming from it, but I knew what it was asking me, like telepathically. I told him yes and took his hand, still smiling, and he said that he would make sure nothing happened while I went to the bathroom. We walked to the bathroom and he waited outside until I finished. We then walked back to my bedroom and got back in bed. The being told me he would protect me from anything that tried to harm me, and I believed him. I named him Blackie. So creative, huh? Anyways, I used to hang out with him all the time. My mom thought I had an imaginary friend, but my brother knew about him and said he saw him too. Blackie lived in my closet and in the stove in the kitchen. My mom remembers me having to get him out before she cooked or baked. After some time, Blackie left me. Or rather, I think I left him. But what's strange is that sometimes when I'm scared at night, if I say Blackie or think about him, I can feel he's there with me. That's a neat story. That's a really cool story. Huh. What do you guys think? The deep imaginings of a troubled mind or really a presence? I'd like to think that that's real. I love that story. That's awesome. Because I do believe spirits are everywhere. I do believe they are. And of course, we always hear about the dark ones, the problem ones, the ones that are wrecking stuff and trying to terrorize people. But it's really cool to hear one step up and act as a guardian or a protector. And we hear about that in angel stories and stuff, but never a very tall, thin shadow person with 3 bulky fingers on each hand. That's really cool. I don't know what it is. I can't say I've ever heard a description like that or an experience like this one, but I really hope it's real because that's really encouraging. I'd like to think there are a lot of them out there doing this kind of stuff, but we're all on the outside. Most of us are on the outside looking in, so it's hard to know, but I love this story. I really hope it's real. All right, so let's go to the next one. And this is from, North Carolina. Deb, what's going on over there? A lot of North Carolina coming up tonight. All right. The early evening was gray and misty when Andrew decided to... What? Oh, this is horrible. To murder his whole family. Andrew Sparks was once a successful and enthusiastic watchmaker with a hard-working farmer in the small town of Newland, North Carolina. He had a loving wife, 2 young daughters who all seemed proud of their father and the home life they had built together. The Sparks were a strong-willed family who would soon be bound by a fear so intense that death couldn't even find the courage to put it to rest. What happened? Something was different about Andrew. He became sort of a recluse. He scarcely talked to anyone, and in church he never prayed aloud like he used to. A father that was once filled with joy and the liveliness had suddenly changed. It was early in the evening before dinner when his family heard his footsteps, one by one, on the three screeching steps that led to the door. They heard the sound of the screen being pulled open at such force they thought it would come off the hinges. Then there was Andrew, drenched in sweat, when his wife ran to him, eager for a welcome kiss, but he pushed her away from him, and strangely enraged and in a hurry went to the room where he kept his rifle. After a few short minutes that passed, he returned to the family room where his wife and kids stood watching in disbelief. I'm not going to read the... No, I can't read this. This is horrible. This is absolutely horrible. I don't want to glorify that crap. Ugh, it's just dark and ugly. I know those things happen. I know they happen. I know people break. I know that people shatter, and when they do horrible, horrible things. And it's not that I don't acknowledge those things really do occur and probably create a lot of horrible hauntings and things in their wake. But I don't need to give them airtime. I don't need to talk about those horrendous things on the show and give them any credence or credibility. It's like, it's horrible that it happened once. I don't need to relive it here on the portal. So I hope you guys understand. If you want to learn more about that, go look it up, because I don't want to hear about it. There's some darkness that's just left put to rest. We don't need to recount those horrible things. What can I say? That's just how I feel. That we're going to New York now. Okay. My grandmother died on April 27th, 2008 of cancer dementia. And I have a pretty big family, and he was well loved by all of us, so it was a pretty big blow. I took the news somewhat harshly. A couple of days after his death, there was his calling hours. Oh, I guess calling hours must be like awake. Okay. A couple of days after his death, there was his calling hours and then his funeral. They went quite well, besides the shedding of tears, and I was okay after his funeral. Everyone was comfortable with his passing now. I don't know exactly when my experience happened, but it was within a month of his death. Just to be clear, I was not tired at all that night. After his funeral, I tried not to think much of my grandfather, as it was uncomfortable. So I went to bed after a normal day. I wasn't stressed out at all. It was just another boring day of school. Well, I went to bed that night relatively early at around 8:30, but I had the oddest dream. My father, stepmother, and my sister were at my grandmother's house, but my grandmother wasn't there. My dad, stepmom, and sister were acting like they weren't there. Oh, by the way, the house was exactly like the way it is in real life, not a picture out of place. I saw my grandpa and I was shocked. My dad, stepmom, and sister didn't react at all. My grandpa looked amazing. He wasn't even sick. And I looked at him and he looked at me, and I said, spur of the moment, "I love you, Grandpa." He told me the same, and then we hugged. And then he stood up, which he couldn't do before death, and he walked away into an incredibly bright light. It wasn't blinding. I just couldn't see into it. I woke up crying. What do you guys think? I was just dreaming, or was this real? I think it's real. I think absolutely it's real. It's not really unlike the experiences I had meeting my dad. It was just really incredibly powerful and healing. I mean, when I embraced him, it was so incredibly lucid. I can tell you that the dreams that I've had where I've met people I love that have passed, they are so hyper real, like indistinguishable from an event in my real life. I mean, absolutely indistinguishable. Like when I hugged him, it smelled like him. It felt like him. I mean, it was him. It was every nuance was there in that moment. And, of course I dream. I remember some dreams. I don't remember a lot of them usually, but usually my dreams are kind of disjointed or weird. Like I'll have a conversation with somebody. In the dream, that person's like my best buddy. And then I'll wake up and go, who the hell was that? I don't know that person. What's that all about? But it's so weird. And maybe it's the brain trying to interpret some spiritual activity that we do when we're sleeping or whatever. But those dreams when I've met my loved ones are just real. They are just they're real. Now, granted, I want it to be real too. So I admit I really want those dreams to be real, because if they are indeed real, then what happened in my dream with my dad was very, very healing and very, very powerful. So I really want and need that to be real, because he's passed on. I won't have an opportunity for that moment to occur in real life. So if that's the moment that I can have, then I want it to be real, and I want this person's experience to be real as well. So am I biased? Sure, I sure am. But I still believe it. I still believe that it is real, and not only because of a desire to believe it, but because it was so hyper realistic. The smells, the sights, the sounds, the every little thing was there, like this person explained. And so I do understand what this person is saying. But wild, very, very wild. All right. We have a soul family. They aren't all here physically. I agree, Bomber. That's a good way to put it. I think the connections we make in life are will persist into eternity. And some of those healings couldn't take place in life, but that doesn't mean they couldn't take place after life. That doesn't mean that those wounds couldn't be healed. And my dad and my relationship in life was challenging. I'm an incredibly stubborn person in a lot of ways. He's an incredibly stubborn person. And he was he was a my way or the highway kind of guy. And I respected that because that's who he was, but I hated it at the same time because he just wasn't an emotional person, and I am a very emotional person. So there were some things that just couldn't be said, or there were some things that had to not be said just because there was no way to heal them in our lives. So it was really cool that I had the moment with him after his passing. So yeah, I need it to be real, but it is real to me. I mean, I really do firmly believe that. But I do recognize that I really want it to be real, and so I obviously am biased towards that, but, for good reason, I think. Yeah, it was a cool experience. Thank you, Jamie. It was very, very cool. It was so good. It was so powerful. And the other problem is that he passed. I'm in the north tip of Idaho, and he's back in Minnesota. When he passed, there was no way I could be there. I wasn't able to be there, and that was tough too. I mean, I did visit him, of course, when he was sick and going downhill, and I recognized the fact that the last time I saw him was the last time I was going to see him in this world. I knew that, but I still would have liked to have been able to be close when those times came, but so that was another thing. So it was just great to close those gaps and just to mend that and to say the things that I wanted to say, to apologize for me being me, and he apologized for himself too, which was really cool to hear. So a lot of good things came out of that dream. So, real or not, I guess it's up to the individual, but it was for me. But it's a beautiful story. It is a beautiful thing. Let me look at the clock. We still got lots of time. Excellent. Good. Lots of time, ladies and gentlemen. Lots more fun here on the portal coming right up as soon as I open them. Just going through my list and just clicking some crap, and I'll start reading. All right, the next one's coming from California. Looks like we're getting off the East Coast finally. I hated it the moment I saw it. The floor in the living room felt like a fun house, and it leaned to the left, and the bedrooms, you could see the soil under the house. Oh, that's terrible. The floorboards were warped, and huge gaps allowed damp dirt smells into the rooms. The house was across the street from an elementary school, and it was tiny. My mom and dad had just gotten divorced, and we were on our own. My mom, my brother, three sisters, and me all crammed into a little two-bedroom dilapidated place, haphazardly disguised as a house. My sister shared the one room with me, and my brother slept on the couch in the living room, and mom took the itsy bitsy closet sized room behind the kitchen. The house had an unnatural feel to it, but my mom signed a 1 year lease, and we were stuck there. None of us wanted to go into the backyard. A huge fig tree was the center, and the ground was littered with all kinds of festering things. The only good thing about this place was the close proximity to the schoolyard. At the least, we could run and go to the playground there. My mom allowed us to do this after school work was attended to and our chores were done, and we never wanted to be in the rental home. It just felt cramped. It felt wrong. The first week we were there, I see the call. We'll get to the call after the story. The first week we were there, the bugs found us. They came in through the gaps in the floorboards, and we felt them drop into our beds in the dark. Oh, that's the worst feeling ever. It was scary and disgusting, and Mom bought a can of bug spray and sprayed along the gaps, but the insects found other ways to get inside. I took to sleeping with the covers over my head, and the edges of my one blanket would be tucked tightly around my body, and I barely slept while living there. After one exhausting night, I heard the cries coming from the backyard. It sounded like a small child whimpering in distress. Looking at my mom and siblings, I saw that no one else was aware of the sobering sounds. The crying went on for around 10 minutes. It was intermittent but strong, and I walked to the back door and looked out. Nothing, just the ugly fig tree looming over the yard. I remember peeking out the windows on either side of the house, and there were unoccupied office buildings on either side, but a small space separated the house from the buildings. I thought maybe a cat was trapped there, but I didn't see any signs of a cat. The sobbing, the night cries intensified as the weeks went by, and I felt constantly tormented by the sorrowful sounds. And I was afraid to tell anyone, especially since the sounds only seemed to affect me. One night I got up and got out of bed, and I sat on the back stoop overlooking the fig tree, and I waited. I was tired of the sounds attacking my head and heart, and I needed to see who or what was trying to get my attention. In the past, I just pushed it away, but not tonight. I was tired of fighting it off, and I felt ready for anything. My 13 years on the planet, and I thought I knew what I was doing. I was very quiet as I sat there. My mom's room was just on the other side, and her bedroom window overlooked this pitiful yard, and I stayed out of sight, hidden in the darkness of the night. It was a cool evening, and the winter would be here soon. I shivered in my pajamas, waiting for something to happen. The fig tree looked more ominous in the dark, and it seemed to vibrate with a otherworldly intent, and I tried to adjust my sight to the dark, but it was hard. The large branches of the tree were everywhere, and this caused dark shadows to undulate within the darkness, and I blinked a few times, trying to focus. Were my eyes playing tricks on me? It almost looked like the branches were moving in slow motion. I stood and raised an arm above my head, had the wind picked up, but I didn't feel so much as a breeze. I wanted to enter the backyard and get closer to the fig tree, but I let fear in. It was a mistake. When fear grabs hold of you, you become helpless, and I was frozen where I stood, shivering in the dark. I tried to be brave and stick it out, but I was close to bolting into the safety of the house, and the air felt bad. I had a metallic taste in my mouth, and my head started to hurt. The first sounds made me jump. The crying had started again, and they were coming from the fig tree. Yes, the sound of a child crying, it was coming from the center of the tree. I could see the movement in the dark. The branches were silently shaking with each cry, but now I was pretty terrified. Still, I couldn't move. I had to know what this was all about. I watched the scene play out. This is what happened to me that night, and as it always happens, I have the gift of second sight, and everything started to fade away. And I saw the past. The scene unfolded in clarity, and I watched it in awe. As far as the eye could see, there was emptiness all around. No buildings, no people, just rolling hills and valleys. And I saw the weary travelers coming over a hill, and they pitched a temporary tent where the fig tree had stood. And there were 10 of them, 6 men and 4 women. And they looked dirty and disheveled. The day turned into night, and they made a campfire. And the women were thin and drunkards. The men were no better. I don't know if these were traveling misfits in society or running from the law, but they were there in the middle of nowhere, and they were well into the act of getting drunk. I couldn't really hear what they were saying, but I saw it all from my stoop. One of the men was getting out of control, and words were said, and 2 other men stood up, and a brawl took place. It was a messy, drunken mess of bodies rolling in the dust, and the women were screaming. And one of the younger gals, she looked to be around 17, stood up with a gun. She sobbed and cried for them to stop, but they paid her no mind, and the punches flew all around. Well, the girl got too close, and I saw the fist when it hit her in the temple. She fell in slow motion, and I saw her eyes take on a surprised look, and they went glassy. She hit the ground hard, her head bouncing off the ground with a dull thud, and this seemed to stop the fighting among themselves, and they all looked in disbelief at the girl on the ground. One of the women ran over and stooped down to touch the girl. Her screaming ran through my ears. That one blow to the temple had killed the girl. The images before me were fading away, and I saw the backyard in the night. The fig tree was there again, and it was no longer moving. This tree was on the spot the girl had died. Night after night, I heard the cries of a child, and in reality, it was the cries of the young woman right before she died. I remember going back in the house and never stepping foot in the backyard again. We moved at the end of the lease, and I didn't understand the reasons back then, but today as an adult, I understand. This is what they call a residual haunting, a memory of the landscape of a tragedy. The old house, it was torn down long ago, and a small office building now sits where the house and the fig tree stood. As far as I know, no reports have surfaced over ghostly cries. That's weird, but let's get to our call. This looks like Lewis. Is this you, Lewis?
Hey, what's up?
Hey, what's up, Lewis? What's on your mind tonight, brother?
I was calling last night, but actually, it was about a dream from Valentine's Day.
A dream from Valentine's Day? Okay.
Yeah, me and Frank and Paula from Fearless, or Ghostbusting.
Oh, yeah?
So
Okay.
Frank came, yeah.
So,
Frank was doing the cleansing on me, so I cleansed myself too.
oh, nice. Did it feel pretty real?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel pretty real.
Yeah? Did you guys catch any ghosts?
Then, 2 little orbs, that's all,
Oh, that's pretty cool.
that reflected in the window outside.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
So we did a spirit box session.
In the dream you did?
Yeah.
Okay. How'd that go?
It was kind of funny because the main spirit all talking about food because it got it got hungry from all the refrigerator stuff. It was funny.
That sounds pretty cool. I guess if as far as dreams go, that's a pretty good one. And if you're ghost busting, Frankie'd be a pretty good person to have with you.
Yeah, I always dream about him the most.
Oh, dear. Hey. He's taken, Lewis. No, I'm just kidding. No, Frank's a great guy, and it was just Paula's birthday too, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, good. Are you planning on investigating Lewis? Is that your plan?
No, if I did, I had to be really careful.
Yeah, I think anybody does. Anybody's got to be very careful. But I know you've been following a lot of this for a long time, so I was just kind of curious.
Yeah. If I want to investigate, and I want Adam Kent to be my mentor.
Yeah, he'd be a good mentor for sure. I know he's been at it for a while, and he knows his stuff, and he's very well thought as well. And you can tell just when you talk to him that He really is very conscientious about it.
Yeah.
If we do the
That's
if we do the Coloma thing every year, you'll have to see if you can make it up for one of those.
nah.
Nah?
I had to stay with my family. No, I had to stay with my family.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Well, maybe we'll make it to your neck of the woods sometime and you can hang out a little bit.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Well, cool, brother. Thanks for the call.
Oh,
I appreciate it.
oh, you see, I've been getting a lot of tugging from the back.
A lot of tugging.
Yeah, spirit tugging, even at a church.
Oh,
After worship, I just get tugs.
that's interesting. It's not really aggressive. It's just like, hey, I'm here, I'm here.
Yeah, that kind.
Okay. You'll have to definitely talk to Deb or Dee or somebody about that and see if you're supposed to be getting a message or something.
Yeah, I think it's just one of the new bear cubs. That's all.
You never know. Could be some kind of spirit animal. I don't know. I don't pretend to know too much about that because I don't have those gifts like that. But yeah, that's really cool. But be careful, just in case it's not.
Well, if it's really dark, then I have to have a pastor come to exorcism of the house.
Absolutely. Yeah, you always got to be careful. But very cool, buddy. I'm sorry it didn't work out last night to talk to you. We just ran out of time, but it's great to hear from you tonight.
Yeah. All right. See you next time.
All right. Good night, Lewis. Take care, brother.
You too.
All right. Very cool. Lewis has been around. Lewis is one of the original audience members for years now of the Portal. He's been a part of the Portal for, I think, the very first night that I did a show. I think Lewis was there. So he's seen this all evolve for a long time, for sure. He and I think Ken from Australia has been around for all that time as well, and maybe a handful of other people have stuck with us. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Cool to have the original audience with us as well for all these years. That's really awesome. Let's look at the time. It's actually about that time, ladies and gentlemen. So I guess we've about concluded our journey through the portal, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I would say that on YouTube, I noticed that Ghost Hunters A&E is now showing at least some of the new Ghost Hunters episodes on their YouTube channel. I just had a link show up in my suggestions. So I haven't watched the rebooted Ghost Hunters series. I think Grant Wilson's in charge of that one, and I think that's Grant. Not Jason Hawes, but I forget what the name of Jason Hawes' show is. But if you ever get a chance to check out Jason Hawes' show, their new ghost hunting show, I'll tell you that I did watch a clip that they were showing on Twitter, and they caught some kind of apparition in this house, and it's pretty incredible. He and Steve Consalvis were going over the footage on this clip, and it looks really pretty impressive. So you'll have to check it out if you haven't already. And I don't remember the name of that show, and I apologize, but I'm sure if you look up Jason Hawes, you can see what his new series is called. And if you get a chance, try to find some of the highlight clips, because I'm sure you can find the clip of the apparition that they caught in this house. It's really bizarre, but it really looks like it's legitimate. I'm always apprehensive about the ghost shows. I know that a lot of it is some creative editing and a lot of wishful thinking in many cases, but every once in a while they pull out these gems and they catch these gems, and I think that that's definitely one of them. So if anybody knows the name of that show, post it in the chat, but it's really cool. But if anybody wants to call in, I'm still here. If you call in now, I'll still talk to you. I see that somebody Don was talking to Jamie. Jamie, if you want to call in, I'm still here. We can certainly go longer. It's just that usually we stop around the hour mark, but I guess everybody's just bowing out. But sad but understanding face. What's the understanding face? What's going on, Bomber? What am I missing? Glad to catch a laugh. Oh, hey, great, Brandon. Thank you. I'm glad you did too. It's wonderful to catch new listeners whenever we can. Okay, next time. Jamie says next time. Okay, I'll be here. These shows will be happening at 7 p.m. this week, all week long. Next week, again, remember, I'm going to take a week off, so get your calls in this week if you got to make them, or send your stories in or whatever if you want me to read them on the 2-hour shows. But that's going to wrap it up for us tonight, I guess, ladies and gentlemen. So remember to check out the podcast. New episode launching tomorrow. And this is Lewis from California is our guest on tomorrow's podcast. It was a great discussion, a really nice guy, really cool discussion of his experiences. It was a lot of fun to talk to him. And he's actually going to make a second appearance in the near future as well. He had a lot more that he wanted to cover, and I'd love to have him back on to cover it, as well as his mother actually has had a ton of experiences. So we may be recording with her as well. So all of that will be coming up. But yeah, check it out tomorrow. That'll be Lewis from California. It should be a great show. I think it is anyway, but I hope you all will agree. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight here on the Portal. So take care, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for being here with me on this journey through the Paranormal Portal. And I'll be back tomorrow night with some more night terrors. So spread the word. Let everybody know. If you're not subscribed, get subscribed. Check the description for show links in ways that you can support the show. We have a lot of plans that we want to make a reality, and we sure need your help. So if you are able to, definitely do that. If you're not able to, by financial assistance, then just spread the word. Let people know about the show. That means the world to us. The more people that find the show, the more, the bigger we get, and the more revenue we generate to accommodate our vision of 2020. So, all right, guys, love you bunches. Take care, and I'll be back tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, for another round of the Night Terrors. So I hope you join me then. Good night, everybody. Sweet dreams. We love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. And once again, sweet dreams.